Welcome and thank you for joining us for our first ever episode of Checked Out, the official podcast of Lancaster Public Library. My name is Theodore Griffiths.
And I'm Amanda LaCrone.
And we're both librarians here with Lancaster Public Library. This is a project that we have thought about doing for quite a long time, and it's something that has been a passion project of mine personally since I started here about 3 years ago. And luckily, Amanda was nice enough to join up and
finally convinced me.
Finally, yeah, that's probably a better way to put it. I finally convinced her to be on camera and with the microphone in her face to do this podcast. I've always looked at it as kind of a good way for the entire public to get to know our staff, us as librarians, the things that we're interested in. We interact with patrons on a daily basis, but in many cases, it is really just, as a transaction. You hand us a book, we check it out, we hand it back. And we want you to know that we're here to help with more than that. We have so many other services, and we want you to be able to put a face to that name and to those services as well. So to really jump off of that, I should probably let you know who I am. Like I said, I am Theodore. I've been here for about 3 years. I'm an adult services librarian. I also manage the circulation department down on the first floor, so those lovely folks that you run into when you come in. And I just adore being here. I live in the city, and it's kind of a dream of mine. So what about you, Amanda?
Yeah, again, Amanda LaCrone, adult services librarian. I've been here at LPL for about a year and a half now, but this October here is my 10-year anniversary working in libraries for other systems.
Very nice.
And
Congrats.
I'm the daughter of a children's librarian too, so basically from the womb, I have been a library lover.
Exactly. You've just been in the library nonstop.
Yeah, conscious or not. Yep.
That's fantastic. And like I said, this is called Checked Out. We don't even have a logo yet, but you know what? This is the first episode. We're going to work on that, and we're just happy that you're going to join us for this first one. But I do want to kick things off with what we're looking at in the future. So, Amanda, I know you have some thoughts on that. Some parts we might want to add, some things we might want to talk about in later episodes.
Yeah. We want to keep the content and structure of the podcast pretty fluid, but we were thinking of doing book discussions, interviews with coworkers or program partners or other members of the Lancaster community, and really just getting into giving you a peek behind the curtain of library work.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's definitely a huge part of the goal, is that, like any job, I think there's a lot of jargon and a lot of things that we might even say in passing that people don't really know what we're talking about. Not because it's even a complex idea, but because we just use our own terminology. And also, I think a lot of people think we just play with books all day. So it's a fun way for us to kind of let you know what a librarian does, how this library in particular functions, and I hope we can do that for you.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what are you reading right now? Because I feel like that's what people are probably really coming here for, to know what the librarian's reading.
We just talked for a while about how the library is about so much more than books, but it really is a lot about books too.
You still got to give the people what they want.
So I have 2 reads going right now, which isn't that unusual for me. Mm-hmm. I usually have at least one fiction and nonfiction book going, which is the case right now. My fiction read is called The Hidden Life of Cecily Larson. It's about an older woman. She has just had a fall. She's in recovery from that. And she and her family, generations of it, are grappling with her recovery. She's kind of the matriarch, keeps them all together. It's her present with that recovery, and then flashbacks to her past. She was an orphan and was purchased by a traveling circus to be a trick rider. So you're getting to see all that turmoil from being on the road all the time. And back in the present, her great-grandson is taking a DNA test for himself and family members for a science project. And that DNA test is going to reveal some secrets that I don't think anyone was prepared for.
Sounds like my family.
Okay. All right. And then nonfiction, it's called Muppets in Moscow. This is basically a memoir from,
Adorable.
I know, right? I love the cover design. But it's basically a memoir from the person who was tasked with pulling together a team to make Sesame Street after the fall of the USSR.
Yeah.
So once everything collapsed with the Soviet Union, democratic nations were rushing in to try to kind of put U.S. ideals on that set of places that suddenly whole change.
Okay.
And yeah,
I like that.
It's
That
been
sounds really
interesting.
cool. So is there, with something like that, is there a lot of politics? Is there a motivation from any regime at that time to kind of shape the content? Are you seeing any of that yet?
Yeah, absolutely. In all of the negotiations with Russian businessmen with less than savory
Okay.
practices, that
Okay.
they're leaning on them for funding to bring this children's show that ultimately will do the children in those nations that are recovering good, but the U.S. government and PBS production grappling with what's the most ethical way to get to that production point.
It's actually kind of fantastic.
It is
Okay,
fun.
I like that. All right, very cool. Nice.
What are you reading right now?
So I stick to one book at a time.
Don't like to juggle the way I do.
Although I say that, and yet I have a book that I do want to talk about. It's called The Hounding by Genevieve Purvis, I believe is how you pronounce her name. It's a debut novel. It's absolutely fantastic. It just came out about 2 months ago. I'm really enjoying it so far. But before I even get into that, I then started an audiobook as well, but then I realized I had the physical book, so now I am reading 2 books. I just don't have the other one. It's
You're
called
coming
Little
over
Eve.
to the dark side.
Well, no, it's all fiction though.
Okay.
But it's like spooky season, so like this one, while spooky is more like gothic spooky.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've said before, like maybe like Bronte-ish, but not. I mean, it's a lot to live up to. It's not like, but just in the feeling of it all, how that it seems like there's something lurking underneath. But essentially, my understanding after looking more into this book as I got a bit further in it is that it's actually a retelling in a way of the Virgin Suicides, which is a film that I have not seen,
okay.
oddly enough. And so I don't have a frame of reference for that. But this book itself is set in the early 1800s, and there's these 5 sisters. They live with their grandfather. Their parents have passed. Their grandmother was just murdered. And being young women in the early 1800s, really everything they do is under a microscope. The village men are, well, hence the name The Hounding, are always hounding them in multiple different ways, of course, because this is the early 1800s. They're believed to have too much freedom. They're believed to turn into dogs at night. Also, double entendre. Wow. And it's just, I would describe it. I saw a Goodreads review that literally just said, apparently women can't have hobbies. And that's how I would describe this book. The women in this book just have some hobbies. They like to be out a little late at night, and the entire village goes crazy over it. And it's fantastic. I'm actually really enjoying it so far. Little Eve also just started that. My wife had already read it. Very spooky. Also set in the early 1900s, actually, just after World War I. And definitely more of like a haunted house vibe, Shirley Jackson type of tone, I would say, more so than something like this, which is gothic. So if you're looking for just spooky vibe, this. If you're looking for like actually unsettling and some things that are not fun to read at times, probably Little Eve. So it's horror season. I mean, that's just where we are right now.
Both of those are on my to-be read list,
really?
so it's nice to get a mini review of them beforehand.
Both very well written. As I know you're kind of picky like me when it comes to the actual writing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say talent, but the caliber of the writer. They're both very well written.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So with all of that said, I think we're here mostly to talk about something else, and that is The Unworthy.
Yeah, when we were first brainstorming ideas for the first episode and what we wanted to include, we thought, well, for the launch of a library podcast, why not start off with a book discussion? So that's what we settled on. We did a buddy read for this first one, and we're going to talk about it today. And that book is The Unworthy. And you were already a fan of the author before, correct?
Yeah, so I don't want to butcher her name, but I believe based on the audiobook, it is Agustina Bazterrica. I did read it physically, as you can see by all of our notes, but I decided to, because it's short, I decided to listen to it as well. And I loved her first book. I love Tender as the Flesh. I thought it was fantastic. Have not read her short story collection that came out a couple years ago. But so when I saw this was finally, it was going to be translated to English, I really wanted to check it out.
Yeah, and part of the reason we picked this is that it had been recommended to me. I'm not normally a horror reader. It's not really my genre. But I heard, dystopian feminist literature set in a convent. I thought, well, why don't we give it a try? Yeah. And I don't think either of us were prepared for everything that was in this book. It's a wild ride in under 200 pages.
Well under, like 175, something like that. Yeah, it's packed. Yeah, it's, I very much... I enjoyed it and didn't enjoy it at the same time. I'm still kind of there. I think we've both said we've kind of gone back and forth here and there, but I'm still a little bit stuck in the middle with it. There are aspects of it that I absolutely adore, and there are aspects of it that just feel, because I think of the length and the amount of content rushed.
My first reaction, so on the fence. I think I'm leaning towards the side of dislike.
Which is fair.
I really thought that I would love it because there were so many aspects of it when it was first described to me that felt like they were right up my alley. But again, maybe tackled a little bit too much, but we'll get into all of that here in the discussion.
Exactly. And don't get me wrong, it's well written. It's just, it's a lot.
Yeah. It's
a lot. Yeah. So do you want to give our fantastic listeners a little synopsis of what we're looking at today?
Yeah. Like we said, a lot going on, but I'll start by reading off the synopsis on the inside flap just to give you a little peek into what the plot is. Okay. From her cell in a mysterious convent, cloistered away from the climate catastrophe that has plunged the world into chaos, a woman writes the story of her life in whatever she can find. Discarded ink, dirt, and even her own blood. A lower member of the sacred sisterhood, deemed an unworthy, she dreams of ascending to the ranks of the enlightened at the center of the convent, and of pleasing the forbidding superior sister. But when a strange newcomer joins the ranks of the unworthy, the narrator is forced to consider her long-buried past. As she grows closer to the newcomer, she is increasingly haunted by the questions that she can no longer ignore. How did she get to the sacred sisterhood? Why can't she remember her life before? And what really happens when a woman is chosen to be enlightened?
Not very good things, I will say. Based on reading the book now, not great things.
No, pretty brutal things.
Exactly. I don't think any of you actually want to enter the house of the Sacred Sisterhood, but we're definitely going to for a little bit here because there's a lot to talk about with this book.
There is, and I don't think that it's changed my mind that much about being a horror reader or not.
Really?
So, I don't know.
So are you generally just like, is it a certain aspect that kind of gives you pause with horror?
I don't know that there's anything in particular that's like crossing a line for me with horror, but I feel like some of the things that I do read get lumped into the horror genre, kind of like you talking about Little Eve. Love the gothic side, the like ghost-ish side of it. It's when you start getting into chop them into little bits horror reading that it's not really my thing anymore.
I kind of feel the same way about horror films, actually, where it's that kind of stuff is less impactful, I guess.
You're really into like found footage and stuff, right?
Yeah, and as I've gotten older, like psychological stuff more so like really like slow burns. I just find, I don't know, I guess, as you get older and the shock value wears off, you're just kind of like, now you want things that are like, oh yeah, that's my life. I'm just kidding. No. So, you want stuff that's a little bit more like impactful. You could really feel it.
Gives you something to think about afterwards, not just, ooh, that was
not
a cool movie.
That was, like, wow, they, like all the old Halloween
Wood chipper
movies
didn't expect that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh yeah, wow. So I've kind of shifted away from that kind of stuff as well. I mean, I can always appreciate like some good practical effects, but by the same token, it gets a little old.
That being said, though, I feel like this book, the horror aspects did play an important role.
Yeah, and the gore, actually, which I feel like in most cases doesn't, but I think here it did. I think it's kind of funny. While I'm going to contradict myself a little bit because I just said that I feel like for me personally, the, more emotional, psychological aspects affect me more long-term. They stay with me. But in this one, I feel like the metaphor and the flowery comparisons and the explanations of what the characters were going for made you feel for the character. But then when she would describe extremely gory details about some of the punishments that were being doled out to some of the sisters, that kind of made you feel those in a visceral way, and kind of understand how serious this cult is. It's a bit of a contradiction because I definitely prefer the more psychological aspect, but I feel like you needed that punch in this novel, oddly enough.
Yeah. Part of the reason that I'm on the fence about this book is that I've been playing the comparison game the whole time with it. I'm a big fan of books like The Parable of the Sower and I Who Have Never Known Men and The Handmaid's Tale, and The Unworthy is written essentially as a political allegory about the direction that current events are headed.
Yeah.
And playing that comparison game, there were so many parts of the book that I was thinking, but Octavia Butler did this better and it was more well written. But at the same time, maybe the horror aspects of this were making important points. Those scenes where it was really, really graphic, they stick with you in a way that maybe other narratives that are similar don't at those times.
I kind of agree. I feel like, if anything, that's what gives this book any uniqueness. Because I do agree. Well, you didn't say that it is derivative, but I will build on your point and say that parts of it are, are kind of derivative. But I feel like where it's unique is in the sheer brutality. I feel like the side that she is critiquing, like in world politics and stuff like that, their current opposition is always of the thought of they go low, we go high. She went low. So she is part of that opposition, but I feel like what she ended up doing with this book is, instead of making it kind of a happy, I'm not going to say feel good, although some of those books do feel good at the end, instead she's saying, no, this is going to be brutal. Our only way out is brutal. And this, I mean, again, that's just how she feels. That is her opinion. And I do feel like that's part of what lends this some kind of authenticity, some kind of originality, is that she's taking, I think that's where the horror comes in, where the gore comes in to take that different approach.
It's almost like the torture adds this level of urgency that's making that statement of, I'm putting this brutal graphic imagery in to make you remember this and make it clear, I think, that we need to take action.
Yeah, and that this is serious. We're in a turning point, or we're past that, actually. It seems like she thinks. And I respect that. Again, I don't know if it always hits, but I do respect that she took a different approach, I guess, to this. I mean, I love this kind of literature, and I know you do as well. But I do think the addition of gore is at least an interesting update.
I think at the end of the day, I have to remember that it's a horror book and that she is delivering on the horror aspect. So I can't think about Octavia Butler giving a more nuanced take on these urgent matters. And even some of those books do have very graphic scenes talking about killings and cannibalism and serious topics that are included in The Unworthy, just delivered in a more artful way. Yeah.
Like, if you guys read this book, and I think you should, it's worth checking out. It's short enough. I actually have a note here, page 1. It just says 127, rat.
Yeah, if you give the book a read, that will make sense. There are some scenes that are so graphic that we probably should not describe them on camera. But
I can't talk about the rat scene on camera.
Very impactful by making it so graphic.
Exactly. Sure. I think so. Yeah. But with that said, it's not all gore. I mean, it's not all visual. There is kind of a big spiritual aspect to it, although kind of an unnamed spirituality in a sense of like nothing that we can relate to. And I think a big focus that you've brought up multiple times has been the mantra. Yeah,
religion plays a huge role in this story, and the mantra of the religious order that's been created really has stuck with me throughout the reading, and it is, without faith, there is no refuge.
Yeah.
That's repeated over and over again.
So many different contexts, too.
Yes.
Which I think is a nice touch
at
times. Yeah.
And I'm curious, how did you see that play out throughout the book, that mantra as a theme?
So I know for the cult itself, it was definitely like, it was a rallying cry almost, like just to, as in most organized situations, something to rally around as a team.
Building that religious fervor.
Exactly. So if something's going wrong, you have a justification for it, in a sense, and you can rally around that, and you can make, in this case, you can make sacrifices, and hopefully things get better. I saw it for her, especially as you get later in the novel, as like her comfort in a difficult time. She has become so... herself has started to use this mantra that is for this cult that has really harmed her in a pretty serious way over the years as an internal rallying cry to let herself know that everything is going to be all right and that she's going to get through things. And I kind of like that turn with it, where it's used as a means of control, and then she kind of owns it. She takes it for herself. And I kind of love that. That was one of the things that I did enjoy. That I thought this is a very clever use of that phrase, that for the order itself, it's very literal of without believing in the system that we have set up, there is no refuge for you. You are only protected by us because you've bought into our twisted religious cult. Otherwise, you would be out in the wasteland that the world has become. Exactly. And it almost, too, like, it could almost be like a turn of phrase, but it almost seems as well that this is a borderline, like, it's kind of a death cult almost. I mean, how, to rise through the ranks, your body is mutilated in different ways. You're made deaf, you're made blind, your tongue is cut out. Without faith, there is no refuge. Again, kind of like you said, in this landscape. Yeah. So without faith, it almost feels like there is no peace in your death, which is inevitable in this world. You have, because this, as far as they know, a lot of them is this refuge of space where there's still trees and there's still nature and they can pick mushrooms, and where apparently the rest of the world is almost like a dust bowl. So it almost does feel, like a purgatory or something, before passing on. I kind of, it's on the nose, don't get me wrong, but I like the play with that phrase and what the space where they actually, where these people actually live in, what it looks like, what it stands for. Yeah, that more literal side. But then she does use it well as we see that transformation of the narrator of faith in something more than the rules that the convent has established. The goodness and light that Lucia brings is then her refuge from the chaos that they've created within all that political chaos. She's protected by her new faith in something other than the poor excuse for refuge that they've provided. Yeah, and it is a poor excuse for refuge. I mean, they're literally eating... ground up crickets, I think. Ground up crickets is what they use for flour. They barely have clean water. Yeah. And there's even weird things there, like the clean water from the River of Madness, but is it really? That's never explained.
Again, one of those throwaway points.
One of the throwaway things. There's a lot of throwaway things.
That's why we
in this
struggled
book.
with this.
This book is a hard one to talk about and not throw you completely off of the trail of what we're trying to discuss, because there are a lot of plot points thrown in at completely random times, and sometimes not brought up much again, in some cases never. So it's a tough book to discuss.
I think a good example of one of those thrown in plot points was AI and its impact on the story. Gosh. You had really had some good thoughts in our off-camera discussions about that.
Yeah, I mean, I initially appreciated the idea of, as I was reading the first time, of her adding in the concept of AI, because I thought there was going to be a bigger game at play. I thought there was going to be this turn now in the narrative, because it's brought up when our narrator is in a flashback scene before she's with the Sisterhood. She is going through a schoolhouse. She is rummaging through it to just find anything that she can eat or drink. And she finds a notebook, and this notebook, it goes from normal prose to kind of devolving into worship of this AI deity that apparently it's like an owl-like figure from what I remember. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is going to play into the main villain, if you will, the him, as he's always referred to, the person who is in charge of the cult. I'm thinking, because you never see him, he's always behind a screen, and the superior sister is always kind of like the henchman who does all of the work for him. So I'm like, okay, that could be a fun little turn. I don't think anyone will have seen that coming.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I did not think that way at all.
Immediately where my mind went.
From the beginning, the mysterious him who's at the very top of the pyramid within this convent, that he's going to eventually just be revealed, kind of like the great and powerful Oz. He's just going to be a man, and that's exactly
what
how
happened.
It turned out. But that AI twist would have been so much more interesting.
I was kind of hoping for it. I just thought I was kind of going to be, I was bummed out, and I knew I was going to be a little upset if it was just a guy. I think I wanted something a little bit meatier there, something with more of a message, I guess. And while that is a message, don't get me wrong, it's a message that I think, as you kind of discussed, has been told over and over and over again. So I was maybe hoping for a different take on it, especially if you're going to just, 120 pages in, add stuff about AI.
Yeah, it does come off as more of an afterthought than a good plot point. Again, just kind of inserting those things that we're seeing the consequences of AI in our everyday life right now. The ravings in that journal are very similar to the poor people that have been convinced by AI bots that the bot is real. The journal entry ends with this man crying out to AI like it's a god, asking to find a way to save them from the chaos that the world has devolved into, and it can't. They eventually
just pull the plug. They
imply that the power grid went down because they were trying to stop the growth of AI.
Exactly. And I even thought maybe, and I was probably just reading too much into it, but I thought she was leaving like some little breadcrumbs
along the way
here and there, because there's one scene, and I don't remember exactly where it was, but I believe it's after one of the Enlightened is killed, and so they have a meeting with the entire congregation, and he's behind his screen and he's talking, and she writes in her journal that his voice changes multiple times, and I'm like, oh, there it is. There's the clue. It's probably just because that's what I wanted it to be, but it turns out that he was just upset. And,
maybe we need to write some The Unworthy fanfic and just take it over and make a better plot.
Write our own ending to it. I think that kind of works out. I mean, no shade. I love you, Agustina, but I think I don't know. I feel like why bring it up?
Yeah, no, I think that gives a pretty good summary of why we were perhaps struggling with this book. There were so many moments that felt like an opportunity to give it a lot of depth, And you're just left wanting more with what they gave us. It very on the nose, as you've said a couple of times.
Yep.
Just felt like there were opportunities to elevate it a bit and kind of fell flat.
I mean, I've heard a lot of things that are kind of described like this, and I don't think it's quite the case here, but I do think it kind of verges on it, which is like, you know, wide as a lake, shallow as a puddle type of deal. Like, there's so many ideas, there's so much going on, but she never really dives down to the depths of really any of these ideas or concepts. There's just a lot.
Yeah, I think to start giving our final thoughts on it, I think that sums it up pretty perfectly. Of my final thought is that I think this book bit off more than it could chew in the length of pages that it gave itself, and in all of the styles and elements that the author tried to pull in. Great concepts there. If it had been a full-length novel with a few more 100 pages to develop some of those plot points, I think it could be much better.
And that's even coming from somebody who, like, when it comes to horror or like horror adjacent things, I much prefer short fiction. I
mean, not with horror, but same. Short story is my favorite genre. I run the discussion club on it here, and
I mean, that's
part of the reason I thought I would love this.
Same, and I mean, I haven't read, you know, a ton of novellas until recently, because you told me to read like a lot of the Claire Keegan stuff, which has literally nothing to do with this. If you
Please
like
read Claire Keegan.
Yeah, they're not at all related. And so I found that I really enjoy that even with other genres, but especially with horror, I feel like it's very hard to sustain suspense.
So it's actually an advantage in the horror genre.
Yeah, I've kind of, and it's not that you can, it's just that I found it seems to be a little bit easier for a lot of authors. And so I thought, oh, this is going to be perfect. But had she chopped off a few of these ideas, I think it actually would have been like a less is more situation.
Oh,
I honestly think that I think either way, either you make it a full-length novel or you chop off some of these concepts, some of these things that were tacked on or felt tacked on, focus on the core narrative of, I mean, really the
story
growth
in the convent.
Yeah, exactly. The story in the convent, the growth of our lead character, her relationship with Lucia in the second half, flesh that out a little bit more. There's a few great scenes, a few great romantic scenes, but other than that, it's kind of like, it almost feels like, oh, you know, I just met you and this is crazy. So here's my number. Like, it's just like, it's so like,
it's a 180.
Yeah. It's like, okay, you two just met. I know she's like radiant and there's just insects everywhere she goes, and I get that, but you just met.
Yeah. Just because she can bend wasps to her will doesn't mean she...
You tell me you meet someone who's bending wasps, you're not immediately just
I'm
running
getting
out that
away
door.
from them.
But think about it, the wasp will never bother you.
Fair.
So, but yeah, that's another point too, is that like the moral compass of this novel is very odd, which is fine. I think it's probably part of the point. But that's another thing that I do feel was like almost underdeveloped, where it's like Lucia, who is, I don't know, not really, you know, the narrator's partner at the end, but a love interest.
That newcomer that makes her see things from a different perspective. And
is this kind of shining light and really makes our narrator see through some of the terrible actions and deeds that she's done as part of the convent as well, but then also does some suspect things herself. So again, that's not a problem necessarily. I think everyone in this novel is flawed, some more than others, but
in under 200 pages to try to develop character arcs for everyone in a way that's compelling, it was a challenge. And
I think a little bit of a challenge. I think she could have either chopped some things off and made it shorter, or I actually would love to see a fleshed out version, like you said, a full novel of this. I think she has the talent to do it. But you know, this is kind of
pretty good story. Fell a bit flat. Kind of a thumbs down for me.
Yeah, I'm in the middle. I hate being in the middle. I want to have a stronger opinion on this. Let's just say I am disappointed. I'm not. I don't dislike it. I definitely don't love it, but I'm somewhere in the middle, and I'm quite disappointed. And I don't want to wait another like 5 years for her next novel. That's the other problem.
Well, I'll go back and read Tender as the Flesh. I'll give a review of that, and you can go back to adoring this author, and we'll pretend The Unworthy didn't happen.
That's fair. And to be fair, she could be a one-hit wonder. I remember reading The Girl on the Train, and it's not really at all my genre, but I loved that book. I don't know why. Maybe it was right place, right time. And she has not been able to recapture that. So that happens. That could be the case, that maybe it was just all these ideas that had bubbled up for years. And it's like, it happens with music too, where they say, your first album, you had 20 years to write it, and your second album, you had 6 months. Yeah. It's like, so sometimes that can happen. I assume with the book as well, but we'll see where the future takes her.
And that being said, you could read it and it could become your favorite book of all time.
Yes.
That's the beauty of literature, that it's subjective. And
we have 2 copies.
Check it out from your local library and give us your review then.
Exactly. Please do. And we'll take all this nonsense out now. Although don't be surprised if something gets left in it.
I like finding the notes in books.
Well, I do too. And I use Pokemon cards a lot of the times as a bookmark. So if you ever take out a book here in the adult section specifically, and there's a Pokemon card in it,
return it to Theodore Griffiths.
I had that. I have too many Pokemon cards, so it's a problem. So check it out, though. I think it's worth a read, especially during this season.
Yeah. And with a shorter length, good way to dip your toe in the horror genre.
Right through it. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, in keeping with the horror genre, to lighten things up a little bit after a discussion of a really brutal book, we thought that we'd bring in a segment that we had tossed the idea around, and I think that we found some pretty good stuff to show.
I think Amanda found some really good stuff to show. You dove deep. Let them know where you dove to find these.
We thought, why not try to find the absolute ugliest horror covers within our collection that we possibly could? And we dug up some real doozies, for sure. You want me to start with one of them?
I do. Because they're just... Oof.
And we'll make sure that there are pictures of everything that we talked about today within our collection and all of the books that we're showing you now.
Yeah, and this being the first episode, we don't have like an exact URL yet, but they will be on our website, which is lancasterpubliclibrary.org. Our good friend Lee will get our page set up eventually, and we'll have that for you next time around.
Yeah. But this first book, In the Lonely Hours... not the most horrendous cover, but
especially from afar.
It looks like it has been photoshopped together in 5 minutes. We have a vine on here that looks like it was drawn by a 4th grader, and just kind of a gray castle on top of a red beach, completely unblended, not cohesive.
Literally not at all. I mean, you can see the layers. Like, I feel like I'm looking at an actual, like... Photoshop session.
Just set up on top. Just feels like for a horror book where you're really trying to inspire those emotions to go into the story, not really telling anything good about the book from its cover. We're definitely judging a book by its cover in this session.
And I guarantee you, if you go like into like the first 2 pages with like all the copyright information, it's probably like a Shutterstock situation. Like
they said, wait, what can we throw on here? Yeah.
It's kind of a mess. Yeah. It's
literally cover photograph of Vine's Shutterstock copyright. You called it.
That's the case with everything now, though. I have seen so many, and I know this has been a thing for a while, but side rant, every cover, even good covers that I come across now, if you look at the credits for them, they're almost always stock images. And that drives me crazy. I would genuinely rather a bad original photograph. I don't even care.
Yeah.
Bad original
artwork, something like that, rather than just whatever they toss together.
Yeah, like I want something, I don't know, like some of the covers that I know you have are genuinely horrendous, but there's like also
in kind of an entertaining way.
Like, that gives me something. That's weird. That's something to look at. Like this, it's kind of, Yeah.
Well, speaking of bad Photoshop, though, I think that you dug up something similar on that front.
I did, yeah. So this book, we came to welcome you. Sure, it's a great book, just like all of the books that we pull up and that we talk about and we get a little bit too mean about sometimes. Same exact issue. We're starting off slow, but when you look at this in a high-res image, you're going to see the exact same thing. And it's kind of disappointing because the concept is kind of great. It's a horror book. It seems like there's a suburban setting based on the cover. I have not personally read it. And so there's a woman with this pie. And the idea is very nice. There's like a creature that's coming out of the pie, but it literally looks like they forgot to blend everything. And what they did blend is so obviously just kind of like smushed in.
Just an eye kind of
to
sitting
the
there.
creature, and the eye is on a completely different, like it's like popped out as much as this text. It's just a bit absurd, and
Looks like when I'm trying to make something on
Yes.
Canva and I'm like, yeah, that
Yeah.
definitely blends into that other element smoothly.
exactly. And bear in mind, neither one of us could probably do better. And,
No.
and we know that, but it's just like, I don't know. Most people do judge a book by its cover. Not saying you should. And that just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, you paid someone to design it. It should be a polished, finished product.
Yeah, it looks like a comedy version of what this assuming spooky book is supposed to be, and I just don't love it. I just don't love it. Yeah, they tried though. They tried.
Yeah. Speaking of they tried, I don't know what they were trying to do with the last two books, but I'm going to show my last two.
They had an
all in
idea.
one
That's
fell
all that
swoop
matters.
here. So I maybe cheated a little bit and delved into our historic collection to pull these last two books. Plug for the Lancaster collection.
Yeah.
It's an amazing resource. It's all of our historical materials, everything from family histories compiled by the families themselves
Yep.
to cookbooks from local congregations
Yep.
over the years. If you want to check it out, stop by, ask to see a librarian, and we gladly let you in there.
And I actually used it at one point to find out who the original owner of my house was, because the
Oh,
city
wow.
directories go back to 1865 or something like that.
That's amazing.
My house was built in 1870. So I was able to see who, I found out he was in the Spanish-American War. Like I was able to find out so much about this guy, and it's just the kind of stuff you can do just by looking around the materials we have, and it's a fun collection. Highly recommended. Yeah.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Almost as fun as the book covers. The first one I'll highlight here. These are both short story collections that one of the authors is local. I don't even know what to say about the two like shadowed over figures
hair,
that are
man.
on this cover. Yeah, definitely rocking that, I believe, 80s hair on there. But I think that the book that I found on the shelf next to it is my absolute favorite of everything we gathered today.
That also like vaguely looks like The Weeknd on the bottom.
Yeah, the
That
face
guy?
hovering at the bottom.
At the very
yeah.
bottom.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was around this long, so that's great. It's a
the
early
ghost
gig.
of the weekend.
Yeah,
Love
exactly.
that.
He's still alive, but
But the next one truly takes the cake.
It's gorgeous.
Night Vision 7 short story collection. When we were looking at this before, I think that you theorized that they took one element from every short story in the collection and just drew it on the cover.
it's a working theory.
Right? I mean, we've got everything from a priest to a bat to a saxophone player on here.
Yeah.
It's kind of all over the place.
That is the
And
definition of like a concept of a plan. Like they were like, okay, we're gonna do an aspect of each story, but we're not gonna talk to each other. We're just gonna each illustrate one point and throw it on a red background. Done.
oh my gosh.
It's beautiful.
Yep.
It's gorgeous. I would prefer that. I would than the stock.
At least you have something to talk about,
Exactly.
right? If I
It's
saw this in a
ridiculous.
bookstore, I might have to just buy it
put it on
because
the
it's
shelf.
just so beautifully ugly.
Yeah. When is that one from? I don't know if you remember.
Let me look at the publication page here. I'm seeing 89.
Wow. Okay. I
I
just
see it. Some like 80s action hero stuff going on here, maybe.
True. Yeah, and it is still generally pre-graphic design being. I mean, it was a thing, but it probably wasn't being used for things like that.
And we're
yet.
tweaking things quite as much.
No, because it does look very hand-drawn, I assume. But
I guess maybe I would prefer it to In the Lonely Hours, so at least they tried.
honestly, give the same illustrators that cover and tell
See
them
what
to
they
draw
come up
that.
with. Yeah.
And it's probably better. I don't know. I mean, that's just, who knows? I could be wrong. I could be off base, but yeah, those are just, so if you want to see some bad covers as well, go into the Lancaster collection.
Yep.
Or some really old cookbooks. That's also a fun collection there too. If you want to see just how they used to write those, which is just the ingredients and no instructions, and then you just kind of figure it out on your own. I appreciate that as well.
Really run the gamut with library resources.
It really is, especially in that part, yeah. But I guess that kind of brings us to generally the end of our first episode, which feels kind of surreal because this has been a long time coming. So I want to thank you for doing this with me. I do appreciate it.
I've only been talking about it since I think the first month of me working here. So.
Yeah, I started really early trying to get Amanda to agree with this.
That's the hounding.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
When are we starting this podcast?
That's the current hounding. Yeah, I mean, it's a thing I've wanted to do for a while. We've had a lot, we had a flood, so, we couldn't do it a little bit further back, but, we're coming around to it now.
I'm glad that we finally got around to it.
So am I. It's a lot of fun. And I hope you enjoyed our discussion. I know I did. I'm very happy that we read this book again, even though we were both a bit mixed to not so much on it. But again, that's kind of the beauty of a library and of reading in general, is that you can come in here, we can come in here, especially because we're always here, and pick up any books that we want for free, read through them, and it's kind of a guilt-free process then, you know what I mean? It's just a time commitment, which in this case was not that much. So I hope you enjoyed this first discussion. I hope you'll come and visit us. I hope you'll join us next time. We plan on doing this monthly for the time being.
Let us know what you thought.
Yeah.
Give us some love. And
yeah, we need feedback.
Yes.
Definitely feedback. Neither one of us have ever done this before. Amanda's a musician, so am I, but this is a whole different realm of being on a microphone or using your voice as an instrument, I guess.
Yep. So bear with us as we learn what we're doing, but we will hope that you'll follow along on this journey and like what we're doing.
Absolutely. So if you want to check out any of the supplemental material, we will have it up prior to this being posted. It'll be at our website, which is lancasterpubliclibrary.org. There will be a separate tab for the podcast, and I assume when this goes up the first time, there may be something in the banner as well, but we'll update you later on that. Otherwise, I've been Theodore.
I've been Amanda.
And this is Checked Out. Thank you so much.
See you next time.
See ya.